type dude. Anyway, speaking of Spirited Away, you know who else spirited away? Shinzo Abe, the former Prime Minister of Japan. So let's get started. There's a lot to cover here, but Japan's ex-leader Shinzo Abe dies after being shot during a speech. Trigger warning, I guess. I mean, if you're an American, it's like, gives a fuck at this point. And I truly do not care. Like, I don't have like a, oh my God, I can't believe he was assassinated. I love him, and like how he took Japan out of a recession, and like how he really strengthened Japan's relationship with America. Like, I don't fucking care, okay? Isn't that the entire basis of Lib Dems in Japan anyway? Is that like they're anti-communist and also heavily funded by the CIA in the 50s and 60s exclusively so that they would be, America-adjacent pro-capitalist, America-adjacent capitalist reactionaries for the most part. But like, and his grandfather was a war criminal, yada yada. Obviously, and Japan did a lot of fucking crazy war crimes. Okay, like a lot, comfort women, and a lot of rapes. Not good. But he was whitewashing that, and his grandfather was like directly involved in that and all that stuff. But like ultimately, I still don't care because it's like every fucking politician is like that. Come on, at this point. So. Regardless, though, I'm not like, oh my God, smoking on that Shinzo pack. Like, I don't give a shit, right? But having said that, the Allies in World War II really wanted Japan put down for good. Well, I mean, I don't love him, but do you think I felt bad not being able, what? But do you think I felt bad not being able to see his wife in his last moments? I don't know, man. I'm so fucking desensitized to murder, dude. Like, you're not going to get me to feel sad about a fucking prime minister, okay? A former prime minister of a country being assassinated. Unless it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, bro, 19 babies got fucking slaughtered in a school like a month ago. People forgot about it already. Like, I live in America. Gun violence is such a permanent staple in this country. And it's just like wild to consider. I'm just not going to care about it. You know what I mean? Shinzo Abe made the world better. David Frum. Okay, this is going to make me actually celebrate, though. If I read a David Frum article, I'm going to fucking lose my shit and literally say things that will get me banned before I go to fucking UK. So that's not good. All right, let's continue.
Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe has died after being shot while giving a speech at a campaign event. Now, eyewitnesses say that Mr. Abe was shot twice from behind while giving a speech.
With a motherfucking blunderbuss, dude. Blunderbussy. Like, homemade. Crazy shit. Yo, Japanese people. Holy shit. Japanese incels are on a different playing field, brother. They just like... Anyway, let's continue.
In the streets, the country's current Prime Minister has condemned the shooting, calling it an act of brutality. And world leaders have also come out in the last couple of hours expressing their shock as well. Now, a man was detained after the shooting. It happened in the city of Nara in western Japan, where Shinzo Abe was giving his support to a candidate there. Let's get more on this now and go straight to our correspondent, Marika Oy, who's in Singapore. Marika, incredibly shocking, not just because violence is so rare in Japan. It has been for such a long time. It's very difficult to get hold of a gun. But also, Shinzo Abe, we must remind all of our viewers, wherever they are in the world, that he remains a very powerful man in Japan. He was a hugely influential figure, wasn't he?
Indeed, he comes from a political family, and he was Japan's longest serving prime minister, only stepped down in 2020. But as you said, he still has huge influence over the current administration. So, for example, when Russia invaded Ukraine, Mr. Abe came out and said that Japan needed to increase military spending. And then shortly after, you start hearing from the current Prime Minister, Fumio Kishida, echoing the sentiment. So you can see how still very influential he is. And it came as a huge shock when we first heard the news that he was shot at around 11:30 a.m. local time this morning in Japan, as you said, in the city of Nara. Of course, Japan has an upper house election coming up this Sunday, and that's why he was out on the streets, giving a speech supporting one of the candidates in the city. Apparently, that visit was only confirmed late last night. So how the suspect managed to find out about it and prepared his attack, that remains to be seen. But as you say, a suspect, a 41-year-old man who lives in the city of Nara, has been in police custody. He's been quoted by a couple of local media reports saying that he had disagreements with Mr. Abe's policies and decided to attack him. But this kind of violence is extremely rare. So as you can imagine, it comes as a huge shock to everyone in Japan. And it has just been confirmed by an official, by the ruling Liberal Democratic Party, that he has passed away.
Yeah.
Bro, the fucking funniest thing is just like every alt-right and like conservative dude is just losing their shit. Like otakus that are like far right are like, oh, Shinzo Abe, he was so good. He led Japan out of this dangerous recession. He was expressly and fiercely anti-communist. We love him. It's like, bro, you're living in Idaho, motherfucker. What are you talking about? Your only experience with Japan is through fucking lolly shit, okay? And now you've decided to be not only a fucking weeb, okay, which is a crime in and of itself, but now you're living in Idaho, you potato fuck, and you've decided to be a weeb for like racism too. Oh, Abe senpai, I can't breathe. It's like, dude, what? Dude, you live in Idaho. Stop doing that. Stop. Okay? What the fuck, dude? And he didn't even like weebs. So there's that part too.
And it's also shocking because political violence is incredibly rare in Japan as well. But I've just noticed
like,
that...
no, I'm a weep too, which is why I'm saying, smoking on that Shinzo pack, because Shinzo did not like the hikikomoris, okay? He wanted the Japanese to bust raw. In the words of Felix Biederman, he wanted the Japanese to bust raw. He was like, there's a big crisis happening with our population. God forbid we open our borders to immigration. That's not happening. But we will definitely try to get you guys to bust raw.
That world leaders around the world very quick to come out and express their shock as well. He wasn't just a popular leader in Japan, he was a popular leader on the international stage.
Yes, I mean, a couple of decades ago, Japan was known for a revolving door of prime ministers. Then Shinzo Abe, for the second...
Oh, yeah. I'll just explain one thing, though. Like, other than, obviously, our incredible relationship with Japan that was carefully manufactured and designed over the course of the Cold War as an anti-capitalist force against China and Russia, the USSR at the time, Japan really did get away with, like, a lot of fucking war crimes that people just don't talk about. Like, everybody always talks about the Nazis, and for some weird reason, outside of Korea and China and the Philippines, but not as much anymore because Philippines is also an island forward operating base for America, like, people truly don't talk about the horrific war crimes that Shinzo Abe's grandfather engaged in personally, that were, of course, pardoned by the American government and also whitewashed by the American government. So there's a lot of that is, but that's also part of the reason why he can do stuff like this. You know what I mean? Like, the reason why he can do shit like this, a Japanese prime minister in a plane with 731 on it is equal to German chancellor driving around a tank with 1488 all over it, by the way. Like, the reason why he can get away with shit like this is because, like, people just don't. R.I.P. and peace, Shinzo Abe. You may have chosen some weird hills to die on throughout your life, but at least you're dead. Did I say anti-capitalist instead of anti-communist? Sorry, I meant anti-communist, expressly anti-communist. And we'll look at like what the Japanese socialists and what they have an opinion on. But basically, we'll get to 731, okay? We'll get to 731 and its symbolism in a second, okay? That's not an accident. Like, him being on a plane that has 731 on the side of it is not an accident. But we're going to get to that. Let's just talk about his assassination first. Don't Google Unit 731, worst mistake of my life. Don't Google Shinzo Abe grandfather, worst mistake of my life. If you're a fan of Shinzo, if you're a fan of Abe senpai, you're not going to like what you see in those Google results.
Second time that he became a prime minister, he served for many years, and as a result, he became kind of the face of Japanese politics, became very close friends with, for example, Vladimir Putin. He had very close ties with him, and since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Mr. Abe has come under a bit of criticism about that. He's also known for his very nationalistic views, so he had very frosty relationships with Japan's neighbors like China and South Korea when he was the prime minister. So he was a divisive figure, while his economic policy has been cheered by a lot of investors. His foreign policy has been quite controversial, and as a result, some of the relationships that Japan has with its neighbors were somewhat strained as well.
Yeah, our colleagues at BBC Monitoring, that they've noticed that in China, leaders there have expressed their shock and they're paying tribute to Shinzo Abe, but online they're noticing that a lot of Chinese nationalists are celebrating his death, showing just how divisive he was there, and that he didn't have friends everywhere. How do you think he would like to be remembered? You've been reporting on his career for some time now.
The funniest thing is like Americans being like, but he was a liberal. He was a liberal. And it's like, hey, why do you think people say cut a liberal and a fascist bleeds, brother? Like, yeah, liberals are like that, okay? Like, sometimes. All the time. Anyway.
Well, he was a politician who pushed for that constitution. Of course, Japan has that pacifist constitution since the end of the Second World War. He wanted that to be changed, and he's been pushing for that since he was in office, and even after he stepped down, he has been quite vocal about Japan's military spending, how Japan needs to cooperate more and, work with its allies when it comes to, for example, Russia's invasion of Ukraine. And of course, the current government of Fumio Kishida has been quite proactive in working together with the United States and some of its other Western allies to put pressure on Russia, which didn't happen in 2014. So, as I said, he was a very influential figure, and even though he might not have been the most popular politicians in Japan, especially among those on the left, this attack comes as a huge shock, and we're now seeing a lot of pictures of him as a young child, because of course his grandfather was a prime minister, his father was a senior politician in the...
That's kind of weird. His grandfather? Wait, what? That's interesting. How does the timing work on that? Like, come on, dude, you're the fucking BBC. Literally, think. What would the timing of that be like? I mean, Shinzo Abe's kind of old. I wonder how old his grandfather was. What time period was he in power, you think? When would that have happened? Like, you're not going to mention that? You're not going to mention that? There is no world in which a motherfucking German chancellor who is coming from a long lineage of fucking, German politicians would never be mentioned like that, okay? This is what I'm talking about. Japan was able to just totally evade a lot of this stuff. And I love Japanese people. I love Japanese culture. I'm obsessed with Japan. Yes, all of those things are correct. But come the fuck on, dude. I mean, Jesus Christ. The Japanese were canonically frozen in ice between 1938 and 1946. Why are you spreading lies? Yeah, they're making it seem like he was a part of the fucking minions, dude. You disgust me, you weeb, says Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Okay, I'm not a weeb, but like I am a big fan of high-speed rail. Okay? But come the fuck on, dude. I mean, Jesus Christ. Otaku's avenged China as a special treat. Genshin Impact is giving away 800 Primo and an Abe corpse doll to equip your favorite lolly or handsy man. Okay, stop. My man says, so Shinzo was a Nazi? Bro, is that the only way you can analyze like whether someone is good or bad? There's something fundamentally broken about like the way that Americans look at history, where it's like, it's only if you're a Nazi. For all intents and purposes, yes. Okay? For you to comprehend, yes. One of his okay, we'll talk. You're standing at high speed rails allegedly while you don't get along with train wrecks, so I've heard. Oh. It's not only Shinzo Abe's like personal background or is his family lineage or whatever, okay, and the war crimes that his grandfather engaged in. Okay? What is significant about it is that what he did in a position of power. And like ultimately, like I said, I guess maybe because of my love for high-speed rail, I do, and because of how far removed I am from Japan, that I have the capacity to look at this without I don't know, I have the capacity to look at this in like a less passionate way. So that's the reason why I'm saying like one way or the other. I'm not like a huge, I'm not like, oh my God, thank God he died. But I just don't care. I don't know how to describe it. Like he's a fucking politician in a position of power. He's a liberal politician. Of course he's going to be fucking dog shit, right? But yeah, Shinzo Abe, former Japanese prime minister, was assassinated, a powerful figure among Japan's right wing. Abe was an apologist for Imperial Japan's war crimes and supported U.S. imperialist efforts in the Asia Pacific. This is true. He comes from a long line of like, America adjacent, as far as I understand. Like he comes from a political family, and the Liberal Democratic Party, which was originally some of which were fascist, and then also like hyper nationalist and expressly and openly very, very anti-communist. The short and sweet of it is basically that the CIA had a lot of involvement in the 60s and 50s in Japan during the Cold War, and they hyped up. They basically did what they've done everywhere around the world, and they wanted to make sure that they had a prominence and a strong position in Japan. A disturbing majority of Japanese don't believe that many of Japan's war crimes occurred, my family among them. The historical revisionism is taught in almost all the schools and is due to part by the imperialist org Nippon Kaigi, which Abe is a part of, except also, I mean, that same shit is in Turkey too, so I get it. You know what I mean? Like, Turkey is the same way. The Armenian genocide is not only not recognized, but it's called the lie. You know what I mean? It's like they literally call it the supposed Armenian genocide in Turkish schools. Like, that's how I learned it. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it is in countries like hyper-nationalist countries like this. And also, much like Japan, Turkey is also a staunch ally of the United States of America and was a part of NATO, and literally America funded and funneled guns to ultra-nationalist militant groups inside of Turkey to squash any kind of socialist uprising, any kind of labor militancy in the country. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that happened in Turkey as well. So like I hate to always take it back to like Turkey. You're like, oh, well, how is this related? But it happens in countries that are aligned with the United States of America and its imperial interests. Like that's what America's modus operandi is. And Abe is very similar to that, or comes from that background. So I want you to understand that. And he was a member of the fascist group Nippon Kaigi. They claim Imperial Japan's war crimes were exaggerated or fabricated, and praised Japanese colonialism for liberating Asia from the West. In 2014, 15 of the 18 in his cabinet were Nippon Kaiji members. We can, get a little bit deeper into Nippon Kaiji and the religious cult that is like, a part of running Japan. Abe praised his grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, who played a leadership role for Imperial Japan. At the end of World War II, Kishi was imprisoned as a suspected Class A war criminal, but the U.S. government never charged him, and instead he became Japan's prime minister. And not only that, but this is America's original interest in making sure that Japan was a staunch ally, and the Japanese fascists, who were of course anti-communist, were in positions of prominence and positions of power. Part of it was the literal fucking war crimes that they engaged in. They did something similar to Operation Paperclip, if I'm not mistaken, where the USSR executed a lot of the people on the I don't know. I don't know what the USSR dealings were with Japanese war criminals at the time, but I do know that America took advantage of some of the biological experiments that were being facilitated, which I'm going to get to in a second, and literally took over some of that research. And again, unsurprisingly, just like with Operation Paperclip in the aftermath of World War II, took a lot of these war criminals in positions of prominence and kept them there and defended them and whitewashed their crimes and wanted to make sure that they were, the anti-communist people in positions of power. So at the end of World War II, Kishi was imprisoned. A World War II hero and a reckoning with Japan's past, VJ Day. The last Japanese soldier to formally surrender after the country's defeat in World War II was Hiro Onoda. Lieutenant Onoda finally handed over his sword on March 9th, 1974. He held out in the Philippine jungle for 29 years. On 1 second. It's like... Come on, bro. You guys have never heard of this? Wasn't there a King of the Hill episode about something like this? Anyway. The U.S. France literally reinstalled Japanese governors in Indochina after the war. Yeah. Or was that an Archer episode? I remember watching an episode, I think, of this exact thing. In interviews and writings after his return to Japan, Lieutenant Onoda said he had been unable to accept that Japan had capitulated. To many outsiders, Onoda looked like a fanatic, but in Imperial Japan, his actions were perfectly logical. Onoda had sworn never to surrender, to die for the emperor. He believed that the rest of his countrymen and women would do the same. But of course, they hadn't. On August 15th, 1945, Japan's supreme divine being, Emperor Hirohito, did something no emperor had done before. He went on the radio. Atom bombs had destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On the day the second bomb was dropped, Stalin declared war on Japan. Soviet forces were already sweeping across Manchuria. Within weeks, they would be landing on the northern island of Hokkaido. Hirohito accepted that the surrender to the Americans was his best choice. You can't joke about this in Japan, though. One Piece author got in trouble for it. Yeah, Japan is hyper-nationalistic. What the fuck? I mean, I've touched on this every single time I've covered Japan. Every time we cover Japan, whether we're talking about Paolo or whatever the fuck, I always will mention how ultra-nationalist Japan is and how hyper-capitalist Japan is. It's not an accident. That happened specifically because of, American involvement. That's just... And xenophobic, yes. It's also part of the reason why the American alt-right love and fetishize the Japanese reactionaries regularly. If Stalin had taken Japan, we would have never had this weeb shit. Well, good thing America took it then, okay? Yeah, there, I said it. The world deserved anime and manga, so good.
While I was in Japan...
We'll talk about this. We'll talk about the right-wing revisionist history of Japan in a second, but let's give you a little bit more details. The young officers failed to stop the broadcast, but they got their wish. After the surrender of the U.S., Hirohito would not be tried as a war criminal after all. Instead, he would stay on the throne, effectively an American puppet. Now, there is a bit of an irony there, because Emperor Hirohito and his maintenance of his seat was actually one of the conditions of surrender for Japan. And at the time, America was like, yeah, no, fuck that. We're still going to bomb you. Because the USSR was going over there. So just remember that. Whenever people say, oh, well, the fire bombings were happening and they were significantly more violent and yada, yada. And that's why, you know, the nuclear option was the peaceful one or whatever the fuck. That's bullshit. The real reason why they used nukes is specifically because they didn't want Japan to be fucking USSR territory. Okay? Because they ended up allowing the emperor to fucking maintain his position of power anyway, to maintain his seat anyway. They literally were like, nah, dog, no conditional surrender, just unconditional surrender. Just kidding. We don't even give a fuck. We're just nuking you, bitch. And then they did, and then they still allowed their conditional surrender to happen. Anyway. Chat is on one this week. What's happening, dude? What? Now, think about a whole country full of this fanatic and a full invasion of their home turf. In comparison to the established casualties of said invasion, the bombs made more sense for the U.S. Please don't fucking run the peaceful nuclear option narrative here. Like, holy shit, dude. Come on. To be fair, we did the same with plantation owners. No, we didn't. Actually, what we did in Japan is exactly like all the bad shit that we did in Japan, with the exception of the nukes, which is a bad thing, but we didn't do the nukes we didn't raise the South. We should have. Okay? But also on top of that, we literally did the exact same thing. We allowed fucking reactionary forces to maintain control of the South in an identical capacity to our hand in allowing the reactionary forces in Japan to be the steady anti-communist people in positions of power against the USSR. The South got off super easy, man. Anyway, we're not going to watch a 2-hour and 30-minute fucking video on this, but no, we are going to watch the Biden executive order in a second. Another big motive behind the nukes was sending a message to the USSR. Yes. Peaceful nukes is literally drilled into your heads at all levels of American academia, so I don't blame chatters. That's wild, dude. Only in America do motherfuckers say... Only in America do motherfuckers say... Wait, what? Every guy can be a 7 has really changed my life? No shot. Really? This is fire. Okay, we'll take a look at that in a little bit. I don't know, man. I'm starting to think the U.S. isn't the best country. All right, we'll do the Brandon thing. We'll do the Mac attack in a second, okay? But going back to fucking Shinzo, okay? Going back to Shinzo Abe on the HasanAbi broadcast, okay? Here are some more details, by the way. Multi-barreled firearms were confiscated at the Tetsuya Yamagami house. The dude's ex-military. Here's the gun that he used. It was like a blunderbussy with a... which is fucking wild. He made it with like duct tape and PVC and shit. Okay. Yeah, HasanAbi, Abe. He made like a fucking sawed-off shotgun basically, and he straight up walked up behind him and in firing range and popped him, which is crazy. What's also crazy from an American's point of view, by the way, is that like they apprehended him without killing him, which is weird. But yeah, there's a video of it. He's literally fucking chilling. Here's Shinzo's last moments on this earth, where he's just straight up, where he's just right there, and then boom, he just gets shot, and I won't show you the footage, obviously. I mean, you can't really tell, but still. And you can see, like, even before he gets shot, because the first shot I don't think hits him. But, like, here, I'll show you right here. Like, do you see that cloud? Like, the massive fucking cloud of smoke? That's where he is. There's a big-ass explosion, basically. And everyone's impressed with the gun. I want to know where he got the ammo. Who can sell ammo as a business in Japan? No, I think everything is. Japan builds their own shotgun. America complains about how spending $1,500 on an AR is a right. Yeah, So one thing you got to understand. One thing you got to understand is that, like, the culture in Japan is dramatically different. You're like, how the fuck did he get to that? How the fuck did he get in firing range? Like, how did he get in firing range with this fucking blunderbuss looking ass weapon that he made with fucking PVC and duct tape? And that's because he had to make a weapon with PVC and duct tape, motherfucker. In Japan, people don't have that, like, cultural understanding that, you know, holy shit, someone's gonna get clapped. The only people that have guns in like the civilian population are usually Yakuza people, and they also don't really operate like normal organized crime operates, but especially now, but they're like literally organized and collaborate with local authorities, collaborate with the police. It's basically like a business that takes violent means into their own hands, and in certain instances could even fucking operate like the police force. So aside from like pissing off the Yakuza, like the likelihood that you're gonna get murked by a gun, well, not super high. And as a matter of fact, a lot of the political assassinations that have happened, in Japan, with the exception of the one that I just showed you, where the fucking fascist in the 60s executed the socialist guy on live television with a katana. Most of those other political executions, which are commonplace in Japan, have happened at the hands of the Yakuza. One of the main branches of the Yakuza formed from dock union workers. My Japanese friends and family are shocked that he was shot, then sad that he died. Abe was very unpopular leading up to his resignation. 9 deaths caused by a firearm in 2019 compared to 39,470 in the U.S. the same year. Yeah. And Japan does have a suicide culture. If you want to talk about fucking suicides, I mean, I believe we have a higher rate of suicide, which is wild. If I'm not mistaken, I don't want to fuck that up. But it is kind of crazy. Like, you know, Japan is like, you know, having a culture revolving around suicide, people working themselves like crazy. Dude, come on. Bro, that's fucked up. I mean, he did shoot him with a Fallout gun, to be fair. He did turn on VATS and shoot him with a fucking Fallout gun. But unlike Fallout, you want to know why it's not Fallout? Because it took 2 shots. Fallout is you know, enemies in Fallout literally are famously fucking bullet sponges. You know what I mean? And Abe, on the other hand, not a bullet sponge. Two shots, and it is all it took. Not just an improvised gun, but also improvised ammo, electronically detonated powder, battery below the barrels. Fuck Second Amendment weeps chirping about gun laws in Japan. Yeah. Not always. Sometimes limbs will fall off. Okay, anyway. Japan has a lot of similarities with America, though, and then we're going to get back to that now. Abe also visited the Yasukuni Shrine on multiple occasions despite opposition from China and Korea. The Yasukuni Shrine enshrines Japan's war criminals, for the record. Okay. Another like very American component. Abe refused acknowledgement of Japan's World War II sexual slavery, known euphemistically as the comfort women system. Abe disavowed and considered repealing the 1993 Kono Statement, which acknowledged and apologized to comfort women, which was sex slavery that they engaged in. Really horrific shit. In 2015, Abe and Park Geun-hye settled an agreement to help former comfort women, yet no victims were consulted and the agreement did not reflect their demands. Abe later reaffirmed his stance that comfort women's system was not a war crime. In 2018 of October, South Korea's Supreme Court issued the opinion that Japanese corporations that use slave labor from Korea during World War II must pay $89,000 in reparations to surviving slave laborers. In response, Abe declared a trade war, not dissimilar to America with respect to that as well. Okay. Under Abe, the government revoked subsidies for Joseon schools in Zainichi Koreans in Japan, taking a hard line against Koreans in Japan. Zainichi Koreans experienced systemic discrimination and hardship. Abe also targeted Okinawa, suffering doubly under Japanese colonialism and U.S. imperialism. In 2019, Abe agreed to relocate a U.S. military base in Okinawa, despite 70% of its people voting against it in a referendum. The Okinawa referendum rejects new U.S. military base, but Abe what do you call it? Abe fucking rejected the new U.S. military. Okinawa rejected the new U.S. military base, but Abe pushed for it regardless. And for those of you who don't know, the Okinawa U.S. military base, the Marine base, right? If I'm not mistaken, is a hotbed for not only COVID during the time of COVID, but also famously is a place where a lot of sexual assault happens and is covered up, drunk driving, American shit. So yeah. Liberals are pro-clutch about a little fucking fascist getting killed, but will be the first in line to talk shit about any communist or outspoken leftist over the pettiest and benign shit never fails. Yeah, of course. Because they're liberals. And he's a liberal. This guy is not like a fucking out and about fascist even though he is as is denying Japanese war crimes specific to Abe or his party, or is it something that most Japanese politicians do? No, most of them do it. Dude, stop. Stop, dude. Okay, you're gonna get me in trouble. Stop. I don't have a position on this. I'm just simply giving you the facts, okay? I don't have a position on this other than like the obviously horrific war crimes of Japan that have gone unaddressed and its ongoing relationship with America and what that does. I'm not saying like it's good that he got fucking killed or whatever, okay? But there's a reason why liberals are like, oh my God, I can't believe he fucking died. Because, like, they like him. They like him because he was an ally to the United States, okay? I'm hearing that on his deathbed, Shinzo Abe received the light of Islam and unhesitatingly recited the Shahada. Even now, he looks down on the Ummah from the gardens of Jannah. Truly, there is no God but God, and there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. Yeah, that's real. That's actually what happened. People, Baba's in the chat. Harry Truman also wanted to nuke Japan to justify so much taxpayer money going into the Manhattan Project. Yeah, good thing. Yeah, right. Yes, I did mention that his grandfather was Nobusuke Kishi, a Japanese war criminal and fascist who was released by the Allies after World War II and was elected prime minister after the war. I did reveal that in the beginning. And while I was talking about how he is consistently whitewashed Japanese war crimes. Where is it? Where's the thread? I missed the thread. Fuck. Where the fuck was? Oh, here it is. All right. So Shinzo Abe upheld U.S. imperialism in Asia, taking a hard line against North Korea and China. He actively contributed to continuing the legacy of Japanese colonialism by erasing of Japanese war crimes against enslaved Koreans. And ultimately, basically, he not a good guy, okay? Not a great guy. I think we all agree, right? I mean, you know, it's kind of not good to whitewash war crimes, especially if you were on the losing side. Like here at the HasanAbi broadcast, like I try to fucking not whitewash even the winning side's war crimes. So definitely not good if you whitewash the losing side's war crimes. Here he is falling into a golf bunker after Shinzo and Donald Trump senpai played golf in Japan. Anyway, apparently in Japan, after the 1923 Kanto earthquake, Japanese police spread rumors that Koreans were poisoning the wells. A lynch mob killed 6,000 Koreans and Japanese socialists in the aftermath. Japan's reactionaries still target Koreans in Japan to this day. According to Keishi Kumashiro, PhD candidate, there are already rumors that the suspect was a Zainichi Korean or couldn't have been Japanese, floating around in Japanese social media. So, I mean, you have to understand. What do I always say about reactionary motherfuckers all around the world? They are always the same. It's one note, motherfucker. It's just like in America, our alt-right and our right-wing nationalists will be like, oh, it must be a trans person. Or, oh, it must be black people. And everyone has their own version of that. Obviously not to the same severity, but everyone has their own fucking version of that they ride for. This isn't where I was expecting your anime arc to go. Okay, man.